What happens when a novel isn't really a story, but merely a collection of ideas? Well, you get something like, in fact, exactly like Orbital by Samantha Harvey, which won the 2024 Booker Prize. Story is very important to me, as I'm sure you've recognized if you've been watching any of my videos for any amount of time. But story to me, it needs a few things. Well, stories can be very simple. I don't think they need to be complex. There doesn't necessarily need to be change, right? There should be a journey of some kind. Now, it doesn't have to be epic. It doesn't have to be like The Lord of the Rings. It can be an eternal journey. And like I said, there doesn't have to be change. It just needs to be, there needs to be conflict. There needs to be obstacles that a character tries to overcome in a way. And again, I don't want you to think these need to be physical obstacles. They could be internal obstacles. And it doesn't have to be incredibly apparent, right? But we read story for conflict. We don't read story, at least I don't read story merely for ideas. Ideas are fantastic things, but especially in science fiction, I love using science fiction to explore humanity, explore where we're going, where we've been, all of the terrible things we've done, and all the great things we've done, and of course, interesting concepts therein. So needless to say, I was excited to read Orbital. Now, I didn't find out about this book on my own. There are two individuals on my Discord server. You know who you are. One loved it. The other one thought it was just all right. So by the end of this video, I think you'll understand what camp I fit into if I haven't given it away entirely already. But before we get into the review, what is The Hook? What is Orbital by Samantha Harvey about? 6 astronauts and cosmonauts hailing from America, Russia, Italy, Britain, and Japan are on an international space station. And we get a glimpse into their lives and observations for 16 orbits around Earth. You guys know I love to begin my reviews with character because it's my favorite thing to talk about. It's really what gets me invested into the story. But unfortunately, this is one of the weakest parts of this novel. So we have 6 individuals. We have Chie, who is from Japan. We have Nell, who is from the UK. We have Sean, who's the American. Pietro from Italy. And Anton and Roman are our 2 Russian cosmonauts. So of course, all of these people have backstories. But on that note, backstory is not character. Characterization is the coming together or the opposition of characters. What happens when these people cross their paths with language, with action, whatever it might be? What does that reveal about who these people are? I don't care about where they came from. I mean, I do, but that's not characterization. And that's really what we have here. So we have all these individuals, and really 99% of what we know about them and what we perceive about them, what makes them three-dimensional, are the backstories, okay? It's what we are told, not shown. So we are told all of this information, and it's fine, okay? It's okay. It gives us perspective, of course, but generally, what I like to see with backstory is it's kind of just the foundation. I don't think you necessarily need it the way it's spelled out here, told to us, I might add again, but it's how does this backstory manifest how they are now, right? And the actions that they are performing right now, and the characters, the other people that they are in contact with, they're butting heads with, or they are coming together in agreement, right? Learning some stuff. So we don't get any of that here. And it's really unfortunate. I mean, there's some very brief moments, I guess, of characterization, but that's what I kept looking for. If you think of the film Sunshine, okay? Now, I'm not saying this is the greatest film ever, but it's very similar in that regard. So if you're not familiar with the plot, it's about these people who are on a spaceship headed toward the sun because it is dying out, so they're trying to reignite it. But anyway, the beautiful thing about that story is that we don't get the backstories of these people. We know what their functions are, right? Their titles, what kind of science background they may have or may not have. But what is beautiful is how the characterization, their traumas, their backstories are just intimately intertwined with the plot, right? It's as if, again, they're not winning or losing. They're on a journey together, in opposition or together, and they're learning things about each other. And if you've seen the movie, you know it's not about survival. It's not about coming back home and taking all of this education to become a better person, right? It's not about that. So this book does not have that, okay? This book is a bunch of characters. They're hanging out on the space station, floating around, making observations, philosophical observations. Their lives are being put in perspective, so I can appreciate that aspect. But Outside of that, there was nothing here for me to grab onto to really get emotionally invested in. And maybe that wasn't Samantha Harvey's intent for this novel, but I feel like, oh, it could have been so much better. It could have been so much better from an emotional standpoint rather than an idea standpoint. So let us move on to plot, and this is going to be really short because there is no plot. They're on a space station. They're orbiting Earth 16 times. At least that's what we get to see. And that's it. That's pretty much it. We get their backstories. We get the very mundane, subtle kind of things that are going on in the space station, which I really enjoy. Right, I love it because it's speaking to the sense of isolation. It's speaking to the sense of routine. It's even speaking to the sense of like how important it feels to be an astronaut on this mission, but how insignificant you feel. And so I love the ideas of this book. I champion the ideas of this book, but I just wish I wish they were more. I wish they were displayed from character, right? I wish they came from character. I wish they were a product of character, emergent in that way, and less telling. So this book is mostly telling, unfortunately. It's not a lot of showing. And if I'm reading nonfiction, I expect telling. If I'm reading fiction, I expect mostly showing. And unfortunately, that's just not here. That is the biggest thing I want you to understand if you decide to pick this book up. There is no plot. There is no end that makes you feel like, man, I've been on a journey, or boy, I've had a realization, or these characters have, and I've really taken something from this in that regard. It's just not there. So keep that in mind. But like I said, I appreciate the ideas here. There's so many great moments in this book, and I'll talk about some of the passages when I talk about the writing next. But you're so high up, right? You're so detached from Earth, even though you are human. You see how simple you are as a person, as a biological entity. So even though we are above, looking down at the earth, almost like a god or gods, we have to pee, we have to poop, we have to do all of these things. We're floating around, we get sick, we throw up, we don't, we're hungry, all of these things, we're tired. And that is really apparent in this book. And so you could say that is a bit of characterization, but to me, it's too generic, right? It doesn't pull from the individual. It's more of a collective thing, which again, I think is part of the point of this book, because there's a passage which I'll read that really speaks to that. It's about being one and not being about an individual, which is really part of the big philosophical idea, or ideas in this book. And that, again, you're looking down, you don't see borders. So when we look at a map, we see the divisions of the states, of the countries across the world, of the continents. But when you're looking down at the world, you don't see that. And Harvey really emphasizes that point. She wants us to understand that, hey, we should all get along, right? We're not that different. And again, it's pretty obvious too with a cast, right? We have an American, someone from the UK, Japan, Italy, Russia, et cetera, because we want to show these people from almost all walks of life, or at least different parts of the globe, how they're different, but and back home they're divided by land and distance and all that, but up here they're together, they're one, because we should all get along. And I love that sentiment. I really do. Borders are kind of stupid, right? I mean, they exist, but they're just, it's kind of a silly idea, how like we draw a line and like, hey, this is my land, this is your land. Don't cross over this line or I'm going to mess you up. And so it is kind of a childish concept, but it is what it is. And I think that's one of the great things about the ideas that she explores in this book, is that we often forget these things because we're on the ground, right? To us, it's like, it's endless. Like to go from where I am in California to somewhere in the East, right? It's a world away. But to these astronauts and the two cosmonauts, they experience the passage of time very differently than we do on Earth. And so it's not only about the ridiculousness of borders and the ridiculousness of just tribal behavior. It's just the passage of time. Even it's almost as if they are detached. They are a godlike entity or entities looking down upon this thing that they are a part of, but also they don't feel a part of. So if you're liking these ideas, these exploration of ideas, I think you're going to get something out of this book. But for me, it's just, I still feel like you can have characterization. While I appreciate books like this that are a little bit more experimental, that are a little bit more, avant-garde, you might say, that are trying to do other things. I wanted more. I wanted a little bit more to hold on to, at least. That's how I like to read books, right? I think it's great when authors want to explore ideas or philosophies or whatever it may be through fiction. I think it's, honestly, I think it's the best way to do it versus nonfiction. But do it in such a way to where I feel it, I internalize it. Not, don't tell me these ideas. Show me these ideas. With that said, I definitely respect what she was doing. I just don't feel like it was enough for me to personally connect to. So let's talk about the writing itself now, or as I like to call it, the cinematography of the novel. So this novel, I would say it's beautifully written. I'll even use the B word. I'll call it beautiful because it got me to the end. So this book is, I think, maybe 200 pages long. I can't remember the actual word count, but I got to the end. Okay, so that's definitely something, considering there's really not any characterization. There's no plot whatsoever. I got to the end, so I will commend Samantha Harvey. She wove some kind of voodoo, that some kind of magic that just pulled me to the end. I want to talk about a couple things she does here. So one of the things she does is we'll be with a character, and then she kind of like pulls us away, and it gets into this collective, almost second person voice, which is a really cool technique because she's pulling away from the characters, but pulling you into the narrative, which is a super interesting thing to do. And you don't really see that because most of it is in third person. So to switch to second person is a creative choice. And I did appreciate that because for most of the time, you feel there's a distance there. So there is like I guess a distant third person. So I don't want to say this really isn't a limited third person POV novel. And so you kind of always feel like, I guess, a fly on the wall, or just not even like you're, I guess, maybe sitting at the same table or in the same location as these characters. But then when she pulls you into like the second person voice, it brings you into that, right? It's saying, hey, you're part of this too, right? And that kind of really reinforces what I'm talking about the oneness, right? That we should all get along, right? We're all the same people. We're all the same organism, essentially. That was cool. That was cool. But what I would like to do, I think, is share some of my highlights, some of my favorite passages in this novel that really kind of, they illuminate some of the ideas here, or the things that I found interesting enough to highlight anyway. So here's the first one. From the space station's distance, mankind is a creature that comes out only at night. Mankind is the light of cities and the illuminated filament of roads. By day, it's gone. It hides in plain sight. Now, why I love this is because it's an inverse of how we think about life on Earth. We exist during the day, most of us anyway. Some of us are night owls, of course. I used to be one. But really, most everybody is asleep at night. But to these astronauts and cosmonauts, it's the light that is bringing life. It is showing that there is something down below on this globe, because of course they can't see anything during the daytime. All your dreams of adventure and freedom and discovery culminate in the aspiration to become an astronaut. And then you get up here and you are trapped and spend your days packing and unpacking things and fiddle in a laboratory with pea shoots and cotton roots and go nowhere but round and round with the same old thoughts going round and round with you. That's probably one of my favorite passages in this entire novel, because to become an astronaut is a great achievement. Yet here they are, doing extremely mundane things. Their thoughts going round and round while they go around and round the Earth. And all of the hard work they've put in seems extremely insignificant now, doesn't it? It seems like they should be doing better things, or at least they should feel like they're doing better things, achieving great things, because of just, again, all of the training, all of the mental and physical stress they've had to gone through to come to this point. Russian cosmonauts only, it says on the door of the Russian WC. Correspondingly, on the U.S. toilet door, American, European, and Japanese astronauts only. Because of ongoing political disputes, please use your own national toilet. I'm sure you can get the humor in that. This is the moment of levity I love the most in this book, because while we're thinking about and observing and processing the world below, as it's silly that we have these lines, these borders, these differences, because we're all one, right? We see it as a speck. Still up here, because of ongoing political disputes, please use your own national toilet. So they've segregated the Russians from everybody else. So really funny note there, which demonstrates we have not, no one has completely put their differences aside, even here in space when we are having these philosophical thoughts and discussions about how all this crazy stuff we do down there is absolutely pointless. And us, we are one. For now, at least, we are one. Everything we have up here is only what we reuse and share. We can't be divided. This is the truth. We won't be because we can't be. We drink each other's recycled urine. We breathe each other's recycled air. So here is the concept I was talking about of oneness, togetherness. But she uses such a great thing here, right? Which we are rebreathing. We are breathing each other's air. We are drinking each other's recycled urine. So on a tangible level, we are one. And so I thought that was a great little trick she put in there. So it's not just a philosophical rumination about how, we are one and why do we separate each other. But it also goes back to the toilet thing. We still separate each other. But here we literally are drinking each other's recycled piss. Just her feet dangling above a continent. Her left foot obscuring France. Her right foot Germany. Her gloved hand blotting out Western China. Okay, I take it back. I think this is my favorite passage right here because it's such a beautiful demonstration of perspective. So there's this astronaut looking down through this viewing window, seeing the Earth, seeing these countries, and her mere hand or her foot is completely occluding these massive areas or how we view them differently from when we're down on the Earth versus when we're up here. So further emphasizing how insignificant we truly are down here, which is why I'm going to give Orbital by Samantha Harvey a 6.5 out of 10. A novel that truly isn't a story, but merely a collection of ideas that in fact, I argue could have been half as long to convey the same ideas, with characters that are merely backstories on a page, and not fully utilized with narrative intent, with no plot to speak of, with writing that is both beautiful and thought-provoking, and will at least get you to the very final page. At least it did for me. So let me know, did you read Orbital down in the comments? Do you disagree with me? The more I talk about this book, the more I like it. So it's kind of funny. And that's why I love doing these reviews too, because it forces me to really look at things, write things. I jot notes down. It's like me revisiting the book again, because I want to hopefully articulate how I feel about the book and why I feel about it. Not just because I found it boring or I found it exciting, but why. And that's a thing that I really try to do. So I both recommend this book and don't recommend it. I respect it more than I enjoyed it, but that's okay because I love it when authors are trying to do something different with the medium of fiction versus just telling a traditional linear story. And while I love those, I love experiencing new things in the world of storytelling, even if it doesn't quite work out for me. So if you'd like to check out my own work that are probably both hits and misses, check out the Amazon link in the description. And thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.